I know y'all either want or expect me to get on here and yell and scream about this Dylan Raiola thing. Here's the deal. Would I like to have Dylan Raiola? Yes. Am I going to get on here and yell and scream and act a fool and whatever else about him visiting Nebraska this weekend or possibly flipping Nebraska? No. For those of you who have followed this channel for a while, I'm pretty open about this. I don't follow recruiting, and this is why. Well, I guess to say that I don't follow recruiting is not accurate. I do follow team rankings. Do you have a top 5 class? Do you have a top 10 class? Do you have a top 20 class? Individual recruitments, though, of high-profile players, I quit following a long time ago for this exact reason. Now, by reason, I mean just committing, decommitting, uncommitting, recommitting, flip-flopping, visiting other schools while you're committed somewhere. Because back when I used to follow that, yeah, again, if you've been around for a while, I would lose my mind. You think my blood pressure gets high during a game or something like that? Back when I used to follow the individual recruitments of these high-profile UGA targets, my blood pressure had to be twice what it is now, and I had to stop doing it. And now back then there was no NIL, so like if someone uncommitted or decommitted or recommitted, it was just they changed their mind or a booster gave them $1,000 under the table or something like that. There was no NIL stuff back then. I'm talking about who's been around here long enough to remember like the Demetrius Robertson recruitment at Georgia. Aubrey Solomon was a defensive tackle from Georgia, I believe, if I remember right. Was trending to Georgia, last minute commits to Michigan. I absolutely lost my mind on that, on video. Same thing with Demetrius Robinson, a wide receiver from the Savannah, Georgia area. Ends up going to Cal or something. Eventually, 2 or 3 years later, he transferred to UGA. But, well, here, who remembers these? Yeah, I mean, I had to stop doing that. If you want to watch the rest of those videos, if you just do a search for like Uncle Lou, Aubrey Solomon, or Uncle Lou Demetrius Robinson, you can, well, I think there's 2 Demetrius Robertsons, or maybe there's 2 Aubrey Solomons. I don't know. It might be 2 of both. I had to stop following the individual recruitment of players. So that doesn't mean that I'm upset about hearing the news last night that we might be losing Dylan Raiola in this year's recruiting class. It just means, the only reason I'm even making this video at all, honestly, is because I didn't go back and check, but I think I made a video about Dylan Raiola when he committed to Georgia, which I shouldn't have done, for this reason. And, it's even worse now with NIL, with these players flip-flopping. It happens to a lot of schools in a lot of different years. Again, I'm not downplaying it. This is a big loss, I think, for Georgia. I mean, I had to look at it. This is how little I follow individual recruiting. I had to look up this morning where Dylan Raiola was ranked in the quarterback rankings. I knew he was ranked high, and I think I remember him being even ranked number 1 at one point. But that's the other thing, these recruiting rankings change from month to month. So that's how little I follow recruiting. I had to go look up, and I guess Dylan Raiola is the 2nd or 3rd highest rated quarterback recruit for this year's class, according to 24/7. I'm not here to argue about 24/7 versus Rivals versus On3 or whatever. I don't care which one you use. Whenever I look up recruiting stuff, I always use 24/7, not because I think they're somehow better than the other ones. That's just what I've always used. And so in order to be consistent, if I do talk about recruiting, I use 24/7 rankings every single time. That way I'm not quoting a 24/7 ranking today and a Rivals ranking next week or whatever. I just, out of habit, I always use 24/7. And so Raiola is I guess the 2nd highest rated quarterback recruit right now anyway, in this cycle. Ryan Puglisi is 10, and he's committed to Georgia for this cycle as well. Look, as far as like the reason Raiola would be leaving, I mean, I can only make the same assumptions that everyone else makes, which would be NIL. The other thing is he does have family ties to Nebraska. I mean, his dad played for Nebraska. He's got an uncle that's on the Nebraska coaching staff right now. There was a lot of pressure on Raiola to commit to Nebraska in the first place. I guess one aspect that makes this situation even a little more strange than usual in terms of a decommitment is that Dylan Raiola is not from Georgia, not from Nebraska. He's from Arizona. And for his senior year of high school, his entire family moved from Arizona to Beaufort, Georgia. It was a step up in terms of the level of competition because of the classification that Beaufort plays in Georgia and Georgia high school football just in general compared to Arizona. And it gave Dylan an opportunity to be a lot closer to Georgia's campus. He attended almost every single home game. And he was like the rah-rah cheerleader, shaking the pom-poms type guy in Georgia's class for the 2024 cycle. So he's sort of the ringleader. And if you follow recruiting even on a basic level like I do, and if you follow it more or seriously, you for sure know that there's usually a player or two in every cycle that ends up being like the captain of the recruiting class. I mean, it's nothing official. It's just like they become like the ringleader. They're always, they're always trying to get other players to commit with them to the school they're committed to. They're always talking up the school. They're at every game, that kind of thing. That was Dylan Raiola. So I guess that aspect of it is a little strange that his family would move basically next door to Athens, Georgia, after he committed to Georgia for Dylan's senior year of high school. And now maybe teetering on the edge of decommitting and enrolling at Nebraska. Now, I also want to point some other things out here. You guys know how I feel about recruiting. I think recruiting is the lifeblood of college football. I think without a solid recruiting base and stacked recruiting classes, by stacked, I don't mean necessarily having the number one class. I mean stacked year over year, multiple top 10 classes in a row, I think that is, even in the NIL and transfer portal era, I still believe that is primarily the best way to build a football program that will sustain success for multiple years. I think you can be substandard with your recruiting and spend a ton of money through NIL on the transfer portal and hit on a couple of star players maybe and have a one-off really good season. Think Michigan State with Kenneth Walker, the running back? Maybe even Florida State. Now that remains to be seen. Now Florida State recruits okay, but when you watch them play, a lot of their stars are portal guys. And and this is really they sort of came on at the end of last year, but this is, by far the best year they've had in a while and would be considered a successful season by any measurement, playoff situation aside. So we'll see if this is something that Florida State can carry forward year over year, multiple top 10 finishes in a row. I guess that's what I'm talking. Multiple top 10 teams that every single year heading into the season, you go, they got a shot at the playoffs. They got a shot at the playoff. To me, recruiting is the way you get there. The portal should be to fill holes. So I am huge on recruiting and what it means, and I'm not trying to downplay the Dylan Raiola thing at all. But let's keep in mind, recruiting services are nowhere near 100% accurate. Now, they're right more than they're wrong, but they're right, generally speaking, in terms of tiers, right? Generally speaking, the 4 and 5 star players are better than the 2 and 3 star players. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't find a 2 or 3 star player somewhere that became a star in college or even got drafted or went on to have a great NFL career. Of course you can. But percentage-wise, 4 and 5 stars are going to hit way more often than the 2 and the 3 stars. That's just a fact. The math don't lie. It can't be denied. But the number 3 running back, according to 24/7, doesn't always end up being better than the number 5 running back, according to 24/7, right? They may both be good. One may be a bust. One may be a hit. It's not an exact science. It's an art, right? So I went back and looked. And again, I'm happy to get Puglisi at 10. He hasn't gotten nearly the publicity or the media attention or even the notoriety amongst the fans that Dylan Raiola has gotten. And I think that's because Raiola's a 5-star. At one point was the number 1 ranked QB in the class. Again, now I think he's 2 or 3. Whereas Puglisi is a 4-star, which is still really good. and he's ranked 10th. So Raiola was getting all the attention. I'm still happy to have Puglisi, and he could end up being as good or better than Raiola. Or they both could be flops, or they both could be amazing. I guess what I'm saying is we don't really know. But the fact that Puglisi is 10th, or some other quarterback is 9th or 11th, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have a worse college career than Raiola, or that Raiola is going to be unbelievable. Now, I think Raiola is going to be great. He had a great senior season at Buford. I think all signs point to success for Raiola, so we'll see. But I went back and looked over the last few years at the final quarterback rankings according to 24/7 for each of the last few quarterback classes. I think I ended up going back 3 years because then you got a lot of players that are starting from that list. I looked at last year's class first, but a lot of those quarterbacks were freshmen last year and didn't play, so a lot of people don't know their names. So I went back a couple of years, so you're going to recognize a lot of names on this list I'm about to read off. But anyway, look at this. All right, so again, this is to my point. It's an art, not a science, right? So here is the 2021 recruiting class. And if you've never been to 24/7 Sports before, they break it down for you by year. You can even look it up by high school or junior college or prep school, sort by positions, individual states, whatever you want. So if we look at the quarterback rankings from 2021, this is according to 24/7 just because that's what I always use. All right, according to 24/7, Quinn Ewers, better than Caleb Williams. That's debatable. Both of them. Now, this is a rare instance, really, where both the number 1 and the number 2 QB both hit. Both ended up being really good. I happen to think Quinn Ewers is really good. Obviously, Caleb Williams is as well. But has anyone ever heard of Sam Heward? Anyone? How about Brock Vandagriff at 4? Guy's been at Georgia 3 years, can't get on the field, transfers to Kentucky. Now, he may end up being really, really good. He may not. Who knows? But again, this just goes to show, does it really matter whether you're ranked 1st or 5th? I don't know. Y'all tell me. J.J. McCarthy at 5. Kyle McCord at 6. Again, we know a lot of these names. Ty Thompson at 7. Here you go. Jake Garcia. Remember him? Was at Miami for a while. Believe he transferred to Missouri this past year. Didn't win the job there. He's better than Drake May. Obviously, he's not better than Drake May. The recruiting ranking was higher than Drake May. Drake May was a 4-star. Brock Vandagriff was a 5-star. Sam Heward, whatever that is, was a 5-star. Somebody's going to say, you don't know who Sam Heward is? No, got no idea. No clue. Jackson Dart, 10. He's done okay at Ole Miss after transferring from Southern Cal. Tyler Buckner, no. This guy's so good, he quit football to play lacrosse. I should have did a video on that. This guy entered the transfer portal for lacrosse. Miller Moss, never heard of him at 12. Mildew at 13. I mean, Lord knows I don't think Mildew's the greatest quarterback on earth, but is he better than whatever a Miller Moss is? Probably. Garrett Nussmeier. Now, he plays behind a Heisman-winning quarterback in Jaden Daniels, and when he has played, he's looked good. So, to be determined on him. But a lot of Preston Stone, never heard of him. Sawyer Robinson, don't know who it is. Caden Salter, no clue. Carlos Del Rio Wilson, who? Bayron Morton, Eli Stowers, Luke Altmaier, have heard of him, back up at Ole Miss. At least he was. He might have transferred, who knows. But there's just a lot of names here you never heard of. And then you get to Shedeur Sanders. Now, I don't want to go down that road of the whole Colorado Deion thing, but whatever you think about Colorado and Deion and Shedeur, he's better than a lot of quarterbacks on this list. He has to be, because a lot of these quarterbacks on this list probably aren't even on a football team anymore. Peter Costelli, Kyron Jones, Aaron McLaughlin, Kai Milner. I just don't know who any of these people are. I've just got no clue who any of these people are. Will Crowder, I just never heard of him. Riley Leonard at 47? Come on. A 3-star. I think we know who Riley Leonard is. So the point I'm making is not that Georgia doesn't need Dylan Raiola. Not that I'm not upset. Of course I am. I'd much rather have Dylan Raiola than not. But Georgia's got also Ryan Puglisi. Here, I'll pull up. Let's just pull up this year's rankings while we got it up. So 2024 top football recruits. Again, if you've never been to 24/7, it's really easy to use, and they make it pretty easy for you. Position rankings, quarterback, and so Julian Sayin right now they have as the #1 QB committed to Bama. And look, again, I'm no recruiting expert. So over on the right, Julian Sayin, a 5-star. Dylan Raiola, a 5-star. It looks like Sayin is rated higher, right? Like 99.9970 to 0.996. Whatever. Oh, okay. Great. Both of those quarterbacks may end up being good, or it could be that neither one of those quarterbacks ever ends up being any good at all. It's hit or miss. DJ Lagway at 3, currently committed to Florida. Air Nolan, committed to Ohio State. Luke Cromenhoek, committed to Florida State. CJ Carr. Now this is 4, so there's only 4 5-stars. Did you notice that over on the right? So Julian Sayin, Dylan Raiola, DJ Lagway, Air Nolan. Those are the 5-star QBs in this year's class. Then we go to the 4-stars. Jaden Davis to Michigan. Ethan Grunkmeyer. That's the most Penn State name ever. And he's committed to Penn State. Jake Merklinger. He's also from Georgia. Committed to Tennessee. And then you've got Ryan Puglisi at 10. So again, I'm not here to tell you Ryan Puglisi is going to be better than anybody on this list. But the fact that he's 10 doesn't mean that he won't be. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. You want to pull up one more year just for reference? I guess we'll go look. 2020 was so weird because of COVID, but we'll do it anyway. 2020. All right, position rankings. Quarterback. Top 2020 quarterback recruits. Bryce Young was #1. He ended up being pretty good. DJ Ukulele was #2. He'll never start an NFL game. CJ Stroud was 3. He ended up being really, really good. Hudson Card, bust. Jaquindon Jackson, bust. This at 5. #6, Luke Doty, bust. #7, Harrison Bailey, bust. #8, Ethan Garbers, bust. #9, Haynes King, currently the starter at Georgia Tech. #10, Jay Butterfield, never heard of him, assuming a bust. Shane Illingworth, never heard of him, assuming a bust. Evan Prater, no. Chubba Purdy ended up being okay. Malik Hornsby, never heard of him, bust. Anthony Richardson, all the way down here at 15, ended up being one of the top quarterbacks drafted in last year's draft class. Tyler Van Dyke, up and down career, has started a lot. Can't really call him a bust. He has started a ton at Miami. Jeff Sims, total and complete bust. Started at Georgia Tech, was terrible. Started at Nebraska, was even worse. Drew Pine, not any good at Notre Dame. Even the Notre Dame fans hated him. You got Carson Beck all the way down here at 19. Now, look, I'm not here to tell you Carson Beck's the greatest quarterback on planet Earth, but the guy threw for, 4,000 yards. He had a really, really good season. Better than almost any season anybody on this list. Here you go. Carson Beck had... who on this list has ever had a better season than Carson Beck had last year? Let's stop when we find one. Tyler Van Dyke? No. Anthony Richardson? No. Now, he got drafted high in the NFL, higher than Beck will. But in terms of college seasons, what Beck did this past year was better than anything Anthony Richardson ever did. All these other people we never heard of. Haynes King has never had a season like Carson Beck had. Harrison Bailey, nope. Luke Doty, no. Hudson Card, no. CJ Stroud, yes. CJ Stroud has had a better season than Carson Beck. DJ Ukulele, no. DJ Ukulele never had a better season than Carson Beck had this past year. Bryce Young, yeah. So 2 quarterbacks on this list. And again, Carson Beck is ranked all the way down here at 19. Only 2 quarterbacks on this list ever had a better season than what Carson Beck had this year. So this is a long, rambling, pointless, doesn't make any sense video at all to tell you that, yes, I am upset about losing Dylan Raiola. I never like losing highly rated recruits, if for no other reason. Look, if you have a highly rated recruit on your team, even if he doesn't play, At least he's not playing against you for another team. So I would rather have Dylan Raiola than not. Do I think if Georgia loses Dylan Raiola that they're screwed at the quarterback position? No, I don't. All signs point to Carson Beck coming back for this year. We'll see on Gunnar Stockton, who is sort of the number 2 right now since Vandergriff has transferred. And even without Raiola, we've got a top 10 quarterback in this year's class in Ryan Puglisi. Now, if both of those guys were to decommit, that would be a huge problem. Not necessarily because I think one or the other or both are going to be, all conference players or all Americans or anything, but you can't miss on both your quarterbacks you go after. And keep in mind, with Georgia, they only went after one quarterback in last year's class, and that was Arch Manning. They missed on him, so they didn't sign any quarterbacks in last year's class. So they've got to land Puglisi, and if they lose Raiola, they're probably going to have to bring somebody else in too. But I did make a video about Raiola when he committed to Georgia, so I wanted to come on here and mention this stuff today. So anyway, have a good morning.